Okay, Duncan, it is once again time for a little album review.
I mean, we haven't spoken enough about albums, Dave.
No, we haven't. Not at all.
I feel like we're shortchanging people out there.
Really are. So we're going to stop slacking and we're going to get another album review done for you. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Bristol-based noisemakers, the St Pierre Snake Invasion. The band's new album, Galore, will be released on April 21st via Church Road Records. Yeah. Album number 3 from the St Pierre Snake Invasion.
How? Where have they been? What have they been hiding under?
I don't know. Don't know, Duncan. I don't know. That is a question.
You're my window to the youth, Dave, even though you're older than me. You're supposed to keep me in touch with what the kids are listening to.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I've just got on the TikTok, Duncan. Come on.
I've just got on the TikTok.
Does I know what? No.
I'm abandoning the Twitter.
So this album follows their 2019 album Caprice Enchanté. The long gap between debut album 100 Years a Day, which was in 2015, and the release of underground sophomore smash Caprice Enchanté, I just like saying that, was something the five-piece were reticent to repeat. But circumstance beyond the Bristolians' control dictates that third LP, Galore, comes to us in a markedly different world than the one in which St Pierre were building their reputation and acclaim.
I can't think of what happened between 2019 and 2020.
2019.
Can't think. Did something happen?
Somebody die 2019, like a big famous actor? Or... No, I don't know.
Oh, the king died, didn't he?
Is that what it was?
Pan-breed. Little Love King. Anyway,
frontman and founding member Damien Savelle himself has been adamant that this latest offering would not be a COVID album, right? It's all making sense now. He did not want it to address the ubiquitous isolation of global lockdown. It immediately would date the record to a fixed point in time and not allow its ideas to flourish and find a receptive audience for a continued period. Instead, the changes represented in Galore are so fundamentally powerful and relatable to the human condition. It is an album centred around universally resonant themes of growth. The summer of 2021 saw the birth of Savelle's first child. The concurrent writing of the band's third LP has naturally been greatly informed by the experiences of impending fatherhood, wondering about one's own impact on a life that have been a part in creating, the anxieties of what will be passed down to another generation, and reflections on garnered wisdom with age. These are the key themes that bring us to the band's magnum opus to date. The album was recorded at Middle Farm Studios in Devon and Echo Zoo in Eastbourne, and then produced by Mark Roberts. So, Duncan, I heard the first single from this album, Submecano.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, hold on a wee minute here. One, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah.
And I need to hear more of this. I also thought when I was listening to it, I was thinking there might be some elements of this track that might be potentially something you'd like. However, once I heard the album, I realised there were way more sounds and influences on this that would definitely pique your interest.
Yeah.
Am I right or am I right, Duncan?
You're right, Dave. Yeah. You're right, Dave. I don't want to say that I feel like this album was made for me, but I'm going to say it. I think it was kind of crafted. Well coiffed.
Well coiffed.
Well coiffed nice. In a way to suit my rather eclectic musical disposition.
Oh,
that's a lot of words. That means I like it.
Okay, so tell me more, Duncan. Expand on that a little. What did you like?
So the St Pierre Snake Invasion, out with having one of the greatest names for a band ever. Let's be honest.
Agreed.
Also, just finding it that the singer of this band became a dad in 2021. I became a second-time father to a second child in 2021, which means we are both mad shaggers. So
lockdown shaggers.
Lockdown shaggers. And if we had to give samples, they would be returned with the words potent. Moving away from my junk for a second.
Just for a sec.
So yeah, when you selected this and said this is what we were doing, I said that straight away the artwork just grabbed me. It's kind of vibrant, almost aggressive fuchsia with lots of weird kind of textile sort of design, and a kind of almost like old school 70s kind of movie sort of. Kind of the way the logo's written for Galore and then the symbols at the bottom just remind me of kind of R-rated movies from like the 70s. Not that I was around to see them. I've seen them post. And you were just like that. I've heard a track. I really liked it. Go for it. And you wouldn't give me anything out with that. I think even kind of after that recording, I spun a couple of seconds of one of the tracks while we were chatting, and I was just like, oh, right, we're saving this. I'm going to put this on later on. The St Pierre Snake Invasion are like what would happen if you took Dillinger Escape Plan, the Callous Daoboys, going to swing in for the Imperium, like, because there's a bit for the Imperium in there. 9 Inch Nails.
I was wondering when that was going to come up.
9 Inch Nails is in there, Dave. Trust me, we're getting to it. Galore, I see you, and you are swinging your big broken dick. That's a broken EP, not that their dick's broken.
I see what you did there.
So yeah, there's certainly elements of that in there as well. There's a bit of Every Time I Die. There's a bit of Cancer Bats. There's a melange of different things going on, but inherently they pull it off in such a way where comparisons are apt, but not the sole crux of what they do. They have a very interesting way of doing things, which borderlines on like the purely commercial and at times the most eye-wincing. It's kind of what would happen is if you were eating an apple, right? And half the apple was like a pink lady apple, and the other half was a Granny Smith. So, like, 1 minute you're biting in and you're getting this sweet, crunchy, vibrant, lovely tasting apple, and then you go around the corner and you get this very abrasive sour taste. And that's the entire album as a whole. I really, really like this, so much so that we've been talking about the fact that they're touring when Dave's not here, and I will be going to see them regardless. They're on my radar now. It's a great fucking album. Like, without going track by track, although we're going to do a bit track by track, the opening song is probably the most out there song they have. It's the one that kind of feels like what bands would do. This album's almost in reverse. Like, Cracked Velvet almost feels like a closing song of some sort of experimental and widely displeasant ideas all crammed together with some kind of almost crass melody. But weirdly it works in the position it's in, because the kind of weird, at times not in tune notes that they're playing, it's always discordant sort of guitar licks.
Got a bit of a noise rock kind of feel at times.
100% got a noise rock thing going on, like, is weirdly repeated all the way throughout the album. So it kind of, it's the one that maybe uses it the most out of every track, but they revisit it cleverly all the way through, which is what I love about an intro, which is what defines it as a perfect intro. I hate bands, I've mentioned this numerous times, that do something in an intro which is never revisited. Like, we're going to have techno in the intro and there's not going to be one electronic lick after it. What was the fucking point of that? Doesn't make sense. Do that live, don't do it in the album. Midas is the one where you start to get a feel for what the band actually have going on here. It's the one that has certainly those elements of kind of Callous Daoboys, Every Time I Die, meets the kind of more melodic and more kind of, I would say, grounded moments of Dillinger.
Yeah.
It's layered, it's got some really cool synth work in there, just in the background. It's one thing I will say about them, because we'll come back on production. Production's fucking on fire on this. But the way they layer their instrumentations is really, really, really clever. And this is the first track where they really start playing with layers, which is a Nine Inch Nails technique that I love. And the balance is really well done. Submechano comes in after that. Dude, if ever there was a song written for the fucking pit, it's this. It is cheeky as fuck, right? This is like I smile because I love it. It is so cheeky because it's like it's all like against the grain guitar, all kind of noise rock again, like it's all over the place, and it's grounded with this really just straight down the middle melody. It's fucking ballsy, swaggery, look at my dick like kind of melody. It's just like really in there. And it builds, the track continually starts to build this architecture of the song where it keeps, like, the guitars are still doing what they're doing and they're like working against each other. I love the bass work in it as well. Like the bass guitar at one point, just like that, just like put it through, I think it's a phaser. And they start playing that like in sections and they're building up. And then you get what is finally the chorus at the end before the last section. Like they finally land on the chorus after building all this stuff around it, and you're like, that chorus is cool. They play it essentially 8 times, so the lyric thing plays 8 times, and the track kind of like levels it. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, are you not going back to that? And then they hit you with this riff, man. Oh, this riff, dude. It's a pit riff. It builds up, and it's just this stomping, fucking awesome, head-banging, mosh-tastic fucking... It's pegging music, man. It's like if someone was going to peg me to that. That's an invitation to anyone that wants to peg me. It then goes into Galore. I promise I'm not doing track by track. Galore's the one where the Nine Inch Nails like influence really swung in for me. It's there. It's hard to move away from it. Our big buddy Greg, former Dillinger Escape Plan vocalist, has that register, which makes him very Trent Reznor-y. That's why they covered some Nine Inch Nails songs, even Nine Inch Nails. This dude's the same. It's in the same sort of register and cadence. He has his own thing though. Like when he goes more aggro, he's more in line with like a kind of a Keith Buckley or even Liam from Cancer Bats. It has a kind of more kind of traditional kind of punky snarl than it does necessarily on the Reznor or Puciato kind of thing. But his vocal melodies in that range. Galore has all these build-ups where I felt the Nine Inch Nails coming out of it. It breaks down to this breakneck riff at the end as well, which once again is just like it's an anarchy pit riff, and it reminded me of Broken, the EP by Nine Inch Nails, which has a couple of tracks, something like Wish, for example, where you're just getting slammed with this attack fucking snare and just like really, really, really aggressive kind of punk riffery, but produced in such a way where it sounds more mechanical than it is. It's fucking great. As a title track goes, it's absolutely awesome. And then the album like plays with itself a little bit in a kind of that raise the eyebrows in a kind of cool way. To Sleep Well is a track that once again just hits you kind of hard. They give you moments in melody, and then you think you know where the tracks are going, and then they don't necessarily go where you think the next track would be. They sometimes just like want to be kind of obtrusive and weird. Every Sun's a great example of that, where you get once again it's a big fucking huge old groovy riff, and a massive build up. But then you're hitting with like a verse which strips things out and just gives you like a really kind of snarly, discordant bass with guitar work over there. They play with techniques really, really, really well. Overlook, or The Overlook, comes in. It's probably one of the more darker songs on the album. I really like this one. Lyrically, they're really, really interesting, and I think he weaves these really interesting pictures all the way through it. It's maybe, at first, on first listen, I wasn't fully sure of it as like a track on I felt it was like an anchor, almost like they were jumping an anchor out. because Apex Pre's the next track, which is a track which is basically mostly stripped out, mostly kind of quieter, cleaner sounds, darkly dripping in melody and atmosphere. That at first I thought the Overlook was a weirdly placed track, because I felt it slowed the album down from momentum, and then the next track did that anyway. On subsequent listens, I actually think it's genius, because everything up to that point is kind of breakneck speed, and Overlook is like if you were going down a set of stairs, instead of jumping to the bottom, it is a natural stepping stair in pace and tone before Apex Prey comes in, which is a beautifully, darkly, hauntingly crafted track. Really, 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 really pretty. Weirdly reminded me of Q Lazarus's Goodbye Horses. And I can't even tell you why it makes me think of that. I imagined a man tucking his dick between his legs and saying, "Would you fuck me?" I'd fuck me. It's really, really well done. The penultimate track, and I'm not doing track by track.
You say that
there's Fighting Talk. Is a track with a cool central idea and cool central lyric that it repeats to as a motif all the way through, whilst being really playful and smart with the music in the background. And then I Pray to Liars as a closing song. It's a fucking big old middle finger. I fucking love it. I think it's a great closer. It's another introduction of the synths come in and out smartly through this one and through the album, and closing it comes in as a really kind of grand and closing fashion, and I thought that worked really well for it as well. So it closes super strong. It's 10 songs long. It's about 35 minutes in length, and it doesn't stop. It just continually keeps fucking twisting and turning. The more I have listened to this, the more I pick out other elements of a guitar lick that, was maybe buried, or a bass line that I wasn't really paying attention to, or a hidden synth part that works better than I expected it to. And vocally, it's brilliant. This guy's tone is amazing. His harsher, sharper tone totally fucking works with their sound. His clean sound is that Callous Daoboys thing again of his clean sound. He could be off doing fucking alternative rock and selling millions, and I'm kind of glad he isn't, and he's doing the stuff here. And then lastly, the production makes this sound like $1 million. This is so well produced. Everything is so audible and clear and eye-wincy at times. And it's safe to say, after 15 minutes of talking about it track by track, which I'm not going to do, I think this is fucking awesome. Okay. I heartily enjoyed it. What did you think of it?
I obviously had never heard of the band before, but when I'd heard that first single, Submecano, I was like really interested, so I went and had a listen to the album before, the Caprice Enchanté, and it's probably more harsh and angular than this album. Again, quite difficult to pigeonhole or compare to other artists. But I think there were some kind of small similarities to the Chariot, or even Refused. It's a very fiery album with a lot of raw aggression at the forefront. It still had introspective moments, but in comparison to Galore, this is quite different, but in a really fucking good way. I think Galore still has that fire and kind of snarly punk attitude, but it's also more vulnerable in its nature. It gives you a bit more sides to the St Pierre sound overall than the last album. You can hear elements from that previous release, for sure, but it feels like they've kind of built a layer on top of that, where they touch on way more styles and sounds throughout the album. As you've kind of touched on, one of the main influences and sound that I got was Trent Reznor and 9 Inch Nails. And I never really picked up on it on the single.
Why the rolly eyes?
The T-Rez.
Why the rolly eyes?
I'm just like, oh, here we go, the T-Rez again.
Multi-Oscar winning Hall of Fame inductee
I am, okay, like for people that don't know, I'm not the biggest Nine Inch Nails fan. Duncan has tried and tried for years.
Every way.
And it just never really works for me. This is mixed with enough other styles and sounds that I didn't really mind it that much. There are a lot of vocal characteristics that reminded me of Trent, also musically as well. But you can hear that I was getting that kind of like mid 2000s kind of Nine Inch Nails tinge.
Yeah.
But I definitely got the Greg Puciato thing was definitely in there as well from his solo work and a bit of the kind of Dillinger stuff as well. I could hear it tracked like Midas, the title track, Apex Prey as well. They have that kind of that balance of almost like leaning into that kind of industrial rock, but with that kind of ghostly kind of electronica vibe going on as well. And it's weird though that the composition of those tracks also, to me anyway, felt a bit more solo project-ish for some reason, rather than like a band. But they really work well in the album to give you a break from the tracks that do feel more band orientated, and a bit more riff based. Like the opener, you've got Cracked Velvet, which has that like almost Every Time I Die type size in the riffs, but it's got that quirky math rock rhythm with the noise rock kind of oddities as well. Or Sub Meccano, which again feels probably more in line with some of their older material in terms of the intensity of it. I really like the flow of the album. The choices they made with the running order, the placement of each track, it makes sure the album flows really smoothly. I think having a track like To Sleep Well in the middle of the album was a really clever idea. It's heavy, but it's got melody in there, a bit more texture in the guitar work. Also features Ashley Tubb from Sugar Horse, which it gives the kind of the track another vocal texture. And I felt like they really raised the bar melodically on that track. Reminded me, just in little moments of it, little bursts of, it reminded me of like the more melodic, like the newer side of Steak in places. They're like, if you've never heard of Steak, they're a kind of Belgian kind of grunge core-ish band now. They were used to be more post-metal. Check them out if you haven't. It's a brilliant track. That To Sleep Well was probably one of my favourites on the album. But when they kind of pull back slightly on those types of tracks, they often follow up with something a bit more disjointed or kind of hard hitting. Every Sun follows up To Sleep Well perfectly. I think they give you plenty of kind of girthy guitar riffs. There's some more kind of erratic drumming. The vocals get a bit more intense at times. But I never really felt like it got out of hand either. Like they don't overload it with too many ideas. There's always something that kind of reins you back in. On that track, they've got, again, that almost kind of Every Time I Die-esque kind of bendy style riff that slides in and out just to keep that kind of groove in there. Or there's a little bit of vocal melody to balance out the intensity. I think vocally this is a great performance from Damien. So many interesting characteristics in his voice. Never becomes dull or repetitive in that aspect. I love how was the track Apex Prey, they used two vocals, so there's a male and female vocal. I loved how they intertwined that on that track, and it made it feel a bit more exposed, but again it kept you totally engaged in the track. If I had any criticisms of this, it would be towards the end of the album. Just as you were discussing, it started to become a little darker, and I felt like that end of the album, the last few tracks, they didn't have quite as many kind of earworms for me. They were like kind of teetering on the edge of being more memorable from a vocal point of view in the melodies, but I just didn't feel like they totally synced their hooks in kind of deep enough. The lyrically it was interesting, but the melodies I felt like I wanted a little bit more. That being said, I think this album is definitely a step forward for the band. And for me, it puts them in a more exclusive place than they were before. I think on each release they reveal more and more of themselves. With this one being the most unique that they've sounded, even more diversity and style on offer here. I think this album gives you more variety in terms of the rhythm and the tempo. There's much more light and shade than previous albums as well, which I think makes this easier to absorb. And it doesn't. It's not an exhausting album either. I think there's enough kind of space and kind of melody in there that you never feel like it kind of overdoes itself. I think this opens more doors for them even as a touring band as to what other bands they could bill with, and where they could even go next with their sound. They've definitely shown more sides here. I feel like nothing's kind of off the table. So definitely an enjoyable one for me. Going off the first single, I was really into it. But then when I heard the album, there was actually way more on offer here than I initially expected. What would you rate it? Where would you score this album?
I'd give this a 4.5.
Nice.
I think there's very little that I don't think necessarily works. Like I say, I think the penultimate track is maybe a little bit too experimental. I think I like the themes and I like where they go off, and it does kind of have that kind of almost jazzy sort of, it's out there and we're following the riff, the riff. And then the closing track is very grounded and very, very, very well done. I think you could probably take that penultimate track out and go from, I know why it's in there, is to break up like Apex Twin?
Yeah.
Apex Theory. Apex Prey is a quieter song. If you were to go from that one to the last song, it might be like if I was talking about those stairs walking down, it'd be like you fucking fall. It'd be too much that way, so they put something in to break that up. It's the only track that I think I don't necessarily gel with really strong, but I understand its purpose and the flow of the album. Notwithstanding that, though, I think this is fucking great. Really, 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 really enjoyed it. Thought it was so well done, so well put together. As the other thing we're talking about, the melodies, every single song, the chorus is in there. Like every single song, even when it's not necessarily like the most like melodic or memorable of choruses, the lyrics, the content, and all that went in there. And that's a gift. I've said that before. To make an album that makes you like by the second spin, you're already recalling all the things you've heard is very difficult to do, especially in this climate. I think they've nailed it here. I will be going to see them live. Dave will be in quarantine before he goes on holiday, so they're ruined again. But I genuinely think there's something about their sound that straddles a very fine line between fully commercial and absolute fucking anarchy. And that excites me because there are only a short handful of bands that can do that. Dillinger, Escape Plan, and 9 Inch Nails being two great examples of. So 4.5 for me.
Nice.
Like, they're on my radar now. I'd never heard of them before, and there's no fucking excuse for that at all. I'm very excited to see where they go next. What about yourself, Big David?
Not far away from you. I'm 4 out of 5 on this one. I really enjoyed it, and then just towards the tail end of the album, I started to kind of disconnect a little bit. And as you said, it's probably that more experimental side of the band coming out, slightly darker. That's just, it slightly just affected my score. I didn't quite kind of connect with those tracks as much as I did with other ones. But the rest of this album is awesome. So it's an easy 4 out of 5 for me. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. So that is the new album from the St Pierre Snake Invasion. It's called Galore. It's out on April 21st. On Church Road Records. Links below to the band, to the Bandcamp. Check it out. Let us know what you think. That is the review.